everyone, it's Andrea from Movers and Bakers. Today I am going to share with you my rose, pistachio and cardamom loaf cake. This is absolutely gorgeous. It reminds me of all the flavours of India and it is eggless. Let's get baking. Right, so to start with, you need to get your oven on, preheating at 160 Celsius, and you need to prepare your loaf tin. This is a 2-pound loaf tin, and I've just lined it with some parchment paper, and that is good to go. So, really easy. We are going to start first with our creaming of butter and sugar. So this is my butter I'm popping in my stand mixer. You can do this by hand, or you can do it with a hand mixer, whichever is easier for you. So I've got my butter in my bowl, and I'm also going to add my sugar to it. And then it's time to get mixing. Right, that is my butter and sugar creamed together. I'm going to scrape that down, ready for the next step. So my next step is where I would normally put my eggs into my cake. But instead of putting eggs in today, I'm going to be using yogurt. Now it's really important that you use full fat yogurt, and I'm actually using Greek yogurt because I love the way, I love the texture of it because it's thicker. I find it really makes for a really moist cake. So I have my yogurt here, and I also have some water. I'm going to mix them together, and to that I'm also going to add a little bit of vanilla. So once you've given that a quick mix, it's time to put that in with your butter and sugar mixture. Now when you come to mix this together, you will find that your mixture will look a bit curdled, and that is absolutely fine. Once you've added your dry ingredients in, it will all come together really well, so don't panic. And while I'm doing that on a low speed, it's a really good time to remind you to like this video and hit the subscribe button as well. And once you have finished with that, it is time for our dry ingredients. So let's grab this out of here for a moment. I'm going to pop my sieve on top of my bowl, and to that I'm going to add some flour, baking powder, baking soda, and some salt. And we'll give this a quick sift. And your last ingredient going in before we mix again is cardamom. Now this is ground green cardamom. You can find this in packets in your Asian or Indian stores. You can buy online as well, I'm sure. Or if you're feeling adventurous, you can go ahead and crack them open and grind them up yourself as well. All are good. Now the variance of how much flavor this gives depends on your taste. So I can use anything between 1 and 2 teaspoons worth of ground cardamom. So do it to your tastes and however much you like the flavor of cardamom. So we're going to give that a quick mix together again. Now the thing that I find with this cake is it actually needs a day or so for the flavors to develop before you can serve it. So I will always make this cake a day in advance and serve it the day after. I just find the flavors like the cardamom really develop once they've been baked and they're left to sit for 24 hours or so. So that's why I like to do that and bake it a day or so before I need it. So my cake mix is all done. That literally took me about 30 seconds of mixing in there. So I've mixed it until it's almost completely mixed, as you can see. I'm going to get the last bit down by hand and mix it all together. But before I give it the last and final mix, I'm going to add my final ingredients. So this is chopped pistachios. You can use the kind of nuts that you get where you have to shell them yourself, or you can buy a whole bag of them already shelled. I've just chopped them up into rough chunks, so you can see some are larger than others. That's absolutely fine. So I'm just going to sprinkle those and fold those in along with the last of my dry ingredients, just to make sure everything is really well combined. And if at this point you want to make it a bit more green in color to show that it's pistachio, you can absolutely go ahead and add some green food coloring in. I don't like to do that. I prefer to have my cake look like cake and not make it green, which is why I haven't done that on this occasion. So we're just giving it a quick mix through just to get all those nuts mixed all the way through the batter. And once it's completely mixed, it's going straight into my loaf pan. So now your cake mixture's in your pan. It's going to bake for between an hour to an hour and 15 minutes. Mine takes about an hour and 10, but check your cake at about an hour because different ovens cook at different speeds. So put a skewer into it. If it comes out clean, it's done. And also you can press the top and see if it's done or not. And I will see you on the other side to decorate this beautiful loaf. Right, so my cake is done. I often find, just so you know, with cakes that I don't use eggs, I will often find there'll be a little bit of a crater in the middle. Don't worry, as long as you've checked with a toothpick that it's done, your cake will be fine, but it just tends to sink a little bit more in the middle when I make eggless cakes rather than cakes with eggs. So my cake is done, it is cool, and it is ready to be decorated. So it's time to make our icing, our glaze. So I've got a bowl here. In my bowl I've got icing sugar, and to that I'm going to add some rose water. Now rose water is actually clear. I remember the first time I heard of rose water I expected it to be a pinky colour, but it's not. It's actually a clear liquid. I don't know if you can even see it. But rose water is very, very strong. So I am not going to use very much. You can taper it down if you want, but I would encourage you to put less and add it if you want the flavour more. So in here I have a teaspoon's worth of rose water. You do not need more as far as I'm concerned, but if you like the really floral, fragrant flavour and smell of rose water, by all means go ahead and add more. So I'm going to add that into my icing sugar. And to that, I'm also going to add some milk. So I'm going to start with just a tablespoon and get mixing. And I will add more if I need to, if I feel my icing is going to need a bit more. So as you get towards the end, I just add it a little bit at a time, maybe half a teaspoon or a teaspoon, depending on how much more you feel you need. Now you want this, unlike my donut glazes, I want this to be slightly runny because I want it to be able to smooth it out over my cake. So once you have got the consistency that you want, mine's quite nice and thick. You can see how it folds off my whisk like that, which is perfect for me. So to this, I am now going to add, because it's a rose flavored icing, I wanted to color it a color that reminded me of roses. So I'm going to use actually some red food coloring, but a really tiny amount, just to get the color that I want. So if you've never used food colouring before, I would encourage you to go with gel food colourings. The colour is much stronger. You use a really, really tiny amount. So to use my red today, I'm actually going to use a toothpick and just dip the very end of it in. And that is potentially the only amount of colour that I will need, which is barely any. So I'm just going to swirl it in and then we'll whisk it through. And you can see how that tiny, tiny amount of red has made this beautiful pale pink colour that I think is absolutely perfect. And that is my glaze done. So easy, really quick. And now all that's left to do is to pop it on my cake. And once you've got all your icing on, just spread it out over the top. Make sure you've got it all over evenly, and then if a little bit drips down, that's just going to be beautiful. And just to finish it off, you've got to leave your icing to set for a couple of minutes just so it gets a little bit of a crust. And I've got here some more chopped up pistachio nuts. So I'm just going to pop these over the top of the cake to finish it off. And there you have it, my rose, pistachio and cardamom loaf. So delicious, completely eggless as well, but if you want to use eggs in it, you absolutely can too. Hope you've enjoyed this video. Thanks for joining me today. Don't forget to like it and subscribe if you have, and I shall see you next time. Happy baking.